and welcome back to my YouTube channel where I share all things photography. Hi, if you don't know me, I am Desiree and I'm a senior portrait and wedding photographer located in Wichita, Kansas. Photography is my passion, and being able to help educate and grow others in my local community is the main purpose of this channel. Today, we are going to be talking about editing. I know it's such a struggle when you're a newer photographer trying to figure out your own style and just get the hang of editing your own photos instead of using presets. So today, we're just going to be going through the basics of how to use Lightroom, because that's what I use. And I'll be showing you tips and tricks on how I edit full galleries within a day. Let's get started. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how I edited Alexis and Judd's couple session that we did at the state fair the other day. As you can see, I kind of already edited their whole gallery, but I'm just going to be kind of using this as an example to show you how I edit and also the basics of Lightroom. So ideally, whenever you're photographing, you should be photographing in RAW other than JPEG, because JPEG will compress the image and it won't leave you with as much detail as a full RAW image will. So if you're not already photographing in RAW, I highly recommend it. So here we have the RAW image, and you're going to go over here on the right hand, not presets, but this little, it says edit, these little bars right here. You're going to scroll down, and as you can see, we're going to be messing with the light first. So exposure is basically the exposure of the whole image. As you can see, like the lower I go, the darker it gets, the higher I go, the brighter the whole image gets. So exposure is just going to be literally the exposure of your image. So I'm going to set that up just a little bit, and then contrast is the difference between the shadows and the highlights in the image. So the more contrast you give it, the darker the shadows, but the higher the highlights get, and then the less everything gets. And I do like my shadows to pop a little more, so I'm going to go ahead and raise that up just a tad. Highlights I normally bring down all the time, but highlights is going to be like this area right here, sometimes on your subject's bodies as well. And I don't want my sky to be like super blown out, so I'm going to tune those down just a little bit. Now, the shadows is what I bring up the most instead of exposure, because I don't want to expose the whole image, right? I just want to expose the shadows here on their bodies. And typically, your subject's bodies should be shadowed if you're photographing right. You see how the light and the sun is behind them, so everything on their faces is like even, like there's no spotty lighting anywhere. So the shadows are going to go up just a tad bit. And then whites I normally bring down just a little bit as well. The whites are going to be literally the white colors in your image, so that also plays a role in the sky and their skin tones. And the blacks I normally just leave alone. I hardly ever mess with that. So then we're going to be scrolling down to color. The temperature is going to be the warmth or the coolness of your picture, and I like to edit a little bit on the warmer side because I like my images to pop. And so I'm just going to raise that up just a little bit so it's a little more warmer than the original one. The tint, you can either make the image a little more pink or purple, or make it cooler where it's like down to a green hue, and I almost leave this alone. If anything, I'll raise it up by like 2, but I don't mess with that very often. Vibrance depends on what kind of camera you photograph with, honestly. Like if the colors aren't very bold and vibrant to begin with, then I am going to use vibrance to liven up the colors. But Sony does a pretty good job, which is why I highly recommend Sony. So you barely have to mess with that at all. If you scroll down here, you will see detail in the image. Sharpening, I normally leave that alone. Honestly, if your focus is good, you really don't even need to sharpen your image. Noise reduction, I don't ever use this unless I'm photographing with a higher ISO and I can see some noise in the picture. But it's a helpful tool to have whenever you're photographing indoors and you want to reduce the noise in your picture. So that's good to have. And like I said, I'm not going to do it with this one because I know my settings were pretty good. Color noise reduction is also something you should play around with whenever you notice grain in your pictures. It just helps get the noise out of like the actual colors, whereas noise reduction kind of reduces the grain in the lighter areas. Let's see. So effects, I hardly ever use the effects at all, but texture is just going to make your picture either super smooth, it looks kind of weird, or it'll make it like kind of grainy-ish, I guess, but I don't like any of that, so I leave texture alone. If that's your style, great, you know that it's there and you can make it your own. Clarity, sometimes I will use this a little bit if the image is like too blown out, but I think this is doing a pretty good job, so I'll maybe raise that up a little bit to 6 over here. Dehaze is an amazing tool whenever you're photographing in like super bright sunlight and you're out in the middle of a field. Dehaze will, if your image is like super hazy and super light, if you go up on it, it'll darken the picture for you, or it will lighten the picture for you if it's not enough. This picture is fine, so I'm not going to mess with that. The vignette, I think I pronounced that right, is just like the corners of your screen. You can make them darker, you can make them lighter. I used to be into this whenever I was starting out, but I don't even use it anymore. If you want to do that, that's totally fine. The one reason why I love photography is every person is different. Every person has a different style. You can really, truly make your pictures your own style. I think this picture needs a little more warmth, so I'm gonna add just a touch. Oh, that didn't do anything. I might bring my exposure up just a little bit too. There we go, much better. So there you go, guys. I hope that was helpful. That is literally everything that I mess with when I edit in a picture. Sometimes this color mixer right here I'll use. The greens, whenever I have greens in a photo, which I mean I do have here, but it's not that big of a deal. But when I do have a lot of trees or grass, I can fix the hues on the greens. I don't know if you see this little green spot changing whenever I move this up or down or not. But you can make the greens darker or lighter. You can change their saturation if you want them like super bold or just kind of dull. But like I said, I'm not going to mess with that right now for this picture because I don't deem it necessary. But these are pretty cool to mess with, especially like for fall. You can manipulate the green colors to look orange and brown. or like the yellows you can turn into oranges. It's really cool. So yeah, that is how I edit my pictures. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you found this video helpful and will help you take better pictures in no time. If you like this kind of content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a future video. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.